Order of Light presents We Are the Disclosure, episode 24. With our guest, Chase Williams, as we explore the extraterrestrial phenomenon. Now is the time for those with experiences to speak. We are not waiting for the disclosure. We are the disclosure.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. It's Robert Earl White. Thank you, everyone, for coming back. All of you members who are a member of this channel, thank you so much for being a part of the community. And tonight, we have an amazing friend of mine, Chase Williams. Great guy. We've been friends for a long time, about 2 years. And Chase has an incredible background. Chase reached out to me after hearing my family's UFO crash incident with a triangular UFO. It just so happens to be that Chase, when he was with his mother and very young, right around the same age, also had an experience with his mother and many other experiences as well. He also went to MIT. He did a lot of work in the AI technologies for automotive industries, etc. And he's also been designing and put together his own UAP, forget that name, let's call it UFO vehicle to capture these UFOs. You know, we're going to call them for what they are. And packed with tons of amazing technology. And on top of that, just recently, he leaked a memo, the Wilson Memos, talking about recovered extraterrestrial bodies. You've probably heard this if you're a part of the UFO community and disclosure community. These Wilson Memos, these private classified conversations. Yeah, Chase was a part of leaking that. So within this episode, we're going to talk about all of these things. But before we do that, hey, Chase, welcome to the show, buddy. So glad to have you here. Can you just give us a little bit of your background, who you are, where you come from, and all of that good stuff, brother? Glad to have you on.
Hey, Robert, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate the introduction. I love your show. And like you said, we've been friends for 2 years or a little longer now, and you're a great guy. So as you said, we met as a result of me coming across your story about your triangle experience with your mother. And I had a similar experience, which I'll let you, get me into a little bit later in the show. My background is in electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, focused on artificial intelligence, machine learning. And I've worked in aerospace, I've worked in oil and gas, I've worked in chemical manufacturing, and I work in automotive now. So I don't want to get too in depth into what I'm doing or specifically, but that's my background. Yeah.
It's just titles. It's just titles.
Yeah, it's just titles.
We're
right.
just people.
Yeah.
Just like all of you.
To preface that, 6 years ago, and I think I told you this when we first met, 6 or so years ago, as far as I had come down the so to speak rabbit hole, was that physical extraterrestrials were real because of experiences that I'd had growing up. But anything aside from that, I thought was kind of hooey or hogwash. I thought it was nonsense. Now I'm not of that opinion. I've had other experiences, and it seems like everything that anyone has ever spoken about is real. And there's a lot more to this than just quote unquote aliens. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah. A lot of questions that we don't understand, and we need to have them answered. And the only way to do that is by exploring and listening to everyone, whether we agree with them or not, and just collecting this database of information based upon what we have seen with our own eyes, what we have experienced, what we have felt. This is so important. So Chase, and just to let everyone out there know, Chase is sort of like me. We're the guys in the background. We are the middlemen. We are the ones that are doing a lot that goes unseen. But Chase is probably one of the most influential people in the disclosure community that nobody knows. I want to make that point because true leaders lead from the background. They don't need the validation. They don't need the, oh, look at me. They do what needs to be done to learn the truth or what we think the truth is. That's a beautiful thing. And with that being said, Chase, my mom, I was just about 4 years old. A triangular UFO crashed behind my house. It had 3 blue lights on the corners of it, and it had a bright white light in the center of it. Lower Alloways Creek incident, for everyone that wants to know about that, just go to the playlist on my channel and you'll see it right there. With that being said, one of the things that really bonded Chase and I was when he shared the experience he had with his mother. And with that being said, Chase, can you tell us about that first experience that kind of opened your eyes to the UFO phenomena? Can you go over that?
Yeah, absolutely, Robert. And by the way, I appreciate that comment. I don't think of myself as any kind of leader or anything like that. Like you said, I'm just like you. I'm just like everybody else. Anybody that's had an experience that's similar to what we've had, or for that matter, anybody that's had a ghost encounter, what they describe as a ghost encounter, or night terrors, or anything, out of body experience, near death experience, anybody that questions their sense of reality and it not fitting with what's considered normal by the mainstream, if you will, I'm just another one of those people. That's it. So, and so that's all. But I do appreciate your view of me on that. It's valued. So my triangle experience happened when I was 15. It wasn't the first experience. It was the second most
profound.
Profound. And I was 15 years old. It happened in 1999. So you guys can put a date on old Chase here. It happened in 99, sometime around December of 99. And I was standing in front of my mother's house in Lumberton, Texas. I was on a cordless landline phone with a friend of mine who at the time was also 15. And he and I were both outside, but at our respective houses. He was about 10 miles away from me. And we're both looking up at the night sky, and it's relatively early. I mean, it's like 9 or 10 at night, something like that. And I see what I have to assume was probably the North Star or just a star. But there's this effect that happens when a star is close to the horizon, and it appears to change colors, and it has to do with the way that light is entering the atmosphere and the curvature of the Earth. And that's what I was perceiving, but I didn't know it at the time. I thought that it was a satellite, and I thought that it was changing colors, and that the different colors were being intercepted by some kind of base station on the ground, and that was the way that they were transmitting data or something. I was just trying to figure this out in my head as a 15-year-old, didn't know any better.
Logically.
You're right. And I was talking to my friend about it. Now, a little bit of backstory that I'm not sure I've even shared with you, Robert. Prior to this, I was a bit of a nerd when I was 15 and 14, and today, for that matter. I had fun with my buddy on the phone, and we would pretend that we were from another planet. And as a part of this story, we had triangular scout craft. I know it sounds strange, but this was just a play thing that we did on the phone to pass time. Okay, so I'm talking to you about this light in the sky, and a triangle appears in front of me. I want you and the audience to imagine that you're standing in the front yard of a house. In front of the yard, there's the main road that the house is on. Across the street, there are neighbors. And behind the neighbors' houses, there are big, tall pine trees. And the pine trees wrap around and come to the edge of the street across the street from my mother's house. So my view of the sky begins at the top of these pine trees, where they start on the edge of my neighbor's property across the street, and where that property
real
stops.
quick, this is actually happening. This isn't the fun joke.
Right. This is
actually happening.
This is actually happening. I'm on the
So-
phone with him, and I stop because I see a triangular craft come out from behind the trees above my neighbor's houses across the street. The triangular craft is flying what we would consider to be backwards. So if you think of a regular aircraft, the point, right, the point of the craft, it was normally moved like this, right? But this craft was moving like this. The base was moving this way, and
The base, the wide side was going
wide side
forwards,
was
and the point was in the
forward
back.
edge. That's right. That's right. And the craft, instead of being, if this is the ground, instead of being parallel to the ground like this, it was inverted to grade, and it was moving at about 1 mile an hour. You could walk faster down the street than you could than the craft was moving. So this
Very still.
very
and
still,
slow.
very still. And as far as distance from me, again, this was immediately above the neighbors across the street. It was about, I estimate, about 150 feet line of sight from my eyeball to the vehicle, and about 100 feet off of the ground. So it was very close.
Wow.
Size-wise, when it was above the neighbors' homes, it was about 2 football fields. I know everybody equates size to football fields. I don't know why. Maybe it's an American thing. But
250 yards to about 250 yards to 300 yards away.
No. In size. So this was an
Okay.
equilateral triangle. It appeared as if each side was the same length, and I would say that from the base, the flat base, to the tip, it was about 2 football. So about 200 yards, 100 yards football field, right? It's about 200 yards. Yeah, about 200 yards in length.
Two football, exactly. Two football
roughly,
fields long.
Yeah.
That's massive.
Oh, it's huge.
That's
It's the size of a
huge.
shopping center. The size of a shopping center. So this comes into view, and I'm on the phone with my friend, and I say, there's a triangle craft, a UFO, in the sky. Now, he thinks at that moment in time that I'm playing the game that we normally play, right? And I'm not. And he realized 10 years later that it wasn't a game, because I talked about this for 10 years before he said, hey, maybe Chase actually saw something in the sky. So I see this craft. I don't know what happens to him. At some point, I let him go, and I don't remember that. I don't know if the phone died or what, or if this was more important, so I just dropped the phone. I don't know. But I don't have any recollection of missing time. This is how I recall the event. So the vehicle, the triangle, came into view, and the flat edge, the leading edge, there was a light at every point of the triangle. The lights on the leading edge, those 2 points, were white, and they were solid. They did not blink. They were just on always. The light at the tip of the triangle, or the back of the vehicle, what I perceive to be the back, was red, and it was blinking like an aircraft light every 2 or 3 seconds. Yeah, it would blink. And and it was much brighter than the white lights. And when it would blink, it illuminated about a third or a half of the triangle that was facing me. Because remember, this is on its side, so I can only see the side that's facing me.
It's on its side. Yep. Just like, yep.
So when it blinks, I see, the only thing that I can compare it to is, if you in the audience are familiar with the bed of a pickup truck that's been sprayed with a bed liner. You've got those ridges in the pickup truck, the raised ridges.
Sharp, lumpy.
It had lines that were raised, that were it was rough, dull black, and they were parallel and equidistant. So all the way for as far as I could see, but it only illuminated with the red light, so I couldn't see anything else.
Now
there was
I have a question.
No sound. Yeah,
I have a question with the red light. Now, as I said, our crafts, we saw them at different angles. Mine was different colors. It is what it is. But now, was this blinking red light, was this a blinking in the sense with your artificial intelligence and automotive background and aerospace background? Was this a blinking red light in the sense of a beacon light required by the FAA? Or was this more of a pulsating light and a different light source compared to a normal FAA protocol, flight regulation, and privatized military?
Yeah, no, this wasn't a standard aircraft light at all, but it did very well. It did appear similar to that, to the untrained eye. Now, at the time, I didn't know any better, but I knew that this wasn't human made. Based purely on the way that the aircraft, at the time, it was an aircraft because it was flying in the air, only by the way that it was flying and the fact that it made no noise and it was moving a mile an hour and it was as big as a shopping center, right? And it was up, it was perpendicular to the ground.
It should have fell out of the sky. It should have fell out.
Right. So I knew, with the limited knowledge that I had then, that this wasn't something that we could make, because it defied all known laws of physics. Even at 15, I knew the basic stuff, and this wasn't something that was possible. But the light, no, to answer your question, this was not a standard aircraft light, but it was similar to one. Now, I've since had conversations with people in the military industrial complex that have confirmed with me that the purpose of that light, of all three of those lights, were propulsion system indicators. So the white lights were propulsion drives that weren't activated. The red light was a propulsion drive that was activated, and the amount and the frequency of the blinking was directly proportional to the amount of the drive that was activated. Maybe.
And how it reacts to our vibrational frequency.
Yes.
Dude, absolutely. And with our craft, it was completely stationary. It wasn't moving. And the center light in it was on all the time. It was solid. And the three lights, and it was their propulsion system. Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I've got to tell you, for almost up until you and I met, from when I was 15, almost on a yearly basis, I would look online for other people's reports, trying to find a triangle that was moving backwards, that was inverted to grade, that had three lights instead of the center light. I'm 38 now. So in 23 years, you know how many reports I've found that matched that exact description? No, 2. I found 2.
Oh. You're
2.
lucky.
Yeah.
You're lucky.
Yeah. But still, that's
and yours is different than mine. They're both the same, but very different. And I've never heard anyone exactly word for word down to the colors. But Chase, what you mentioned of the exterior of the metal scene, the craft we saw, it was really like sharp. And like what you said, like the spray-on bed liners, it just seemed like a real raw, earthy, rocky, metallic material, like something that is too heavy to be just sitting up there, not moving, no propellers on it. It should be down. It should be down into the ground, and it wasn't. And you witnessed this. Wow. Yeah. And how old? You said 16, 17?
Yeah,
how old?
15 or 16. Yeah, I think 15.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Now, holy smokes, bro. So you saw this, and how did this thing take off? When did this thing leave your peripheral? When did you lose contact with it?
Yeah, no, it maintained its heading and its velocity. It never accelerated and it never slowed down. It went in the same direction until I couldn't see it past the tree line. Now, a part of the story that I haven't shared with you yet is as this is moving, it's because it's moving so slowly, I have time to go inside to find a camera to take a picture of this. Now, at the time we didn't have digital cameras back in '99, or if they were out there, we didn't know any. Right.
So we had the roll.
Yeah, right. So I go in, but the camera that we have, the film is depleted and the batteries are dead. So because I thought, well, even if the film's depleted, maybe I can roll the film back and take a picture, and maybe I'll get a partial image or something on the film. But the batteries were dead. My mother, who I lived with at the time, was asleep on the couch, and I tried to wake her up, and she would not wake up. Now, it didn't bother me in the moment because I knew that there was a UFO that was literally right outside the front door. So, like I said, I had time to run in, look at the camera, run back out, and yell at her in the midst of doing that to try and get her to wake up. The UFO, I go outside, it's still there. I go outside and I continue to watch it, and it continues to traverse the rest until it just goes behind the trees, just like my hands are going out of frame of my camera. It just goes behind the trees and I can't see it anymore, which is further down the road that we live on. As soon as it's gone, my mother comes out from the front door and she says, what are you doing? And I say, there was a massive triangular craft just now. We had a Jeep. I said, let's get in the Jeep. We can drive down and I'll show it to you. She knew it was real. No, we're not doing that. Come inside. I said, well,
why?
Why? She was afraid. She was afraid. I said, well, I can walk down the street.
Because she knew.
Yeah. Yeah. I said, I can walk down the street. She said, no, you're not doing that. Come inside. So I went inside, and like most people, even nowadays, you see something that fantastic, you want to have a record of it. And even at the time, even though I was 15, I knew, like, I'm going to want to know.
1999.
Right. So I sketched this. I wrote down the date and the time. Now, I have no idea what happened to that. I lost it a couple of years after the fact. So that's why I say I think it was December. It was around 9 or 10. But at that moment in time, I wrote all that data down. I just don't know what happened to that record.
And where was this at? We know that it was in Texas. Exactly where did this occur, in case someone else saw something similar?
Right. So I have reported this. It's on the MUFON database, but it happened in Lumberton, Texas, which is in
Texas.
Southeastern Texas, pretty close to the coast.
Yeah. Hey, big shout out our first guest from Texas. And, I came prepared. I always got the cowboy boots. But for you, my buddy, I got the cowboy boots.
All right, man.
Yeah.
You need to get some boots for your chicken buddy.
Oh,
I'd love to see that.
Chicken.
Yeah, right.
Oh, my baby Derp. I love that chicken.
Derp.
Yeah,
he's a good guy. Yeah.
But so this took place in Texas, 1999. Anyone that's watching this, if you saw anything like this in the 1999 area, I have a lot of friends that live in Texas. I want to hear about it. Texas has been a hot spot from the Luckenbach lights. I'm saying that wrong. Luckenbach, Texas. I got to sing like Waylon.
That's it. That's right.
Waylon Jennings. I got to sing the song. That's the only way I know how to say it. But Luckenbach, Texas, Willie Nelson, all that good stuff. There's been a lot of UFO flaps down there, and a lot of really experimental stuff flying around, extraterrestrial and military vehicles that they keep secret by saying they're extraterrestrials. Important to understand. The Luckenbach lights are a big part of that. But there are actual extraterrestrial craft, and then there are reverse engineered extraterrestrial craft. In your personal opinion, Chase, what in the heck do you think this craft was, and what in the heck was operating this thing, in your personal opinion?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, this is just speculation on my part, but I feel confident in saying that this wasn't of human origin. It may have been extraterrestrial. It may have been ultra terrestrial. It may have been of terrestrial origin, but not
Crypto-terrestrial. Yeah.
Possibly.
Here before
Right.
us. Here
Possibly,
before us,
yes.
to explain that for everyone that
But,
don't know those terms. Yep.
Right, but certainly not of human origin, not something that was reverse engineered. As far as I'm aware, this was something else entirely different. Another thing about that story that I didn't mention is, for years and years, up until having that conversation with the person from the military industrial complex, or the Department of Defense, one of the questions that I had was, the road that we lived on, the road that separated my mother's house, my house at the time, from my neighbors, and remember the triangle was across the street above their house. One of the things that bothered me was that no cars drove down that road during this entire experience. And that road was a residential road, but it was a feeder road. It was pretty busy, even at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning. If you stand out in the driveway, you're going to see a car every 5 minutes at 1 in the morning. And this was like 10 p.m. So I remember during the entire experience, I'm thinking, I'm just waiting for somebody to drive down the street, because I know as soon as they get to this clearing, they're going to see this craft. They're going to slam on their brakes. They're going to get out and they're going to go, "What is that?" Right? It never happened.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
I told you that the person I spoke to told me about the purpose of the lights and why they were doing what they did.
Propulsion.
What that person also told me was that the craft, the reason I didn't see any other cars come down the street is because there likely were cars on the road approaching the perimeter of the area, but there was
interference,
some kind of shift in time space. So the time for me inside the bubble around the vehicle, being so close to the vehicle, was perceived to be different from the time outside. Meaning, if I had walked to the street and looked down the street, which I didn't do, but if I had done that, I might have very well seen headlights or something like that, but it would have looked like the car was standing still. Whereas in the reality outside of the bubble is the car's going 45 miles an hour or whatever. So
exactly.
I was told that as well by this one person. Yeah.
Whoever that one person is, I just want to say they're exactly correct. Like, that's exactly what is going
I'll
on.
say that person is a 3-star general level person.
He's right.
Yep.
He's right, because I've been through this, and it operates differently.
Yeah.
And
that was just for your audience.
System.
Yeah.
Due to the propulsion system, it literally affects our electromagnetic field, which essentially affects our understanding of time, because our time is based off of so many different things. It's a human construct of sorts, but these crafts can actually manipulate what our understanding of reality time is, and it does happen often, very often. And I've heard stories of people I have not had on this show come forward, and they're driving and they get stopped at a stoplight, them and their friends, and they have an experience. So hearing their stories of them just being stopped at a stoplight, is it one of these situations where you're having this experience with a craft and they're being stopped just from a side effect of it? It kind of makes you wonder, but these beings and these crafts and these propulsion systems, due to what they're doing with the pulsar technology and the splitting of atoms in these propulsion systems, it changes our fabric of reality, and a lot of wonky things can happen. What are your thoughts on that, right?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth in that. I also think that that we as human beings, at least right now, I think that we're capable of manipulating time space as well. So some instances of experiences where people have lost time is a result of their own doing, even if it's unconsciously doing.
Remote
and other
viewing,
instances,
astral projecting.
Right. Near-death experiences. All of these things are examples of this type of, call it dimensionality shifting or something, right?
Absolutely right.
There's a greater reality that most are unaware of, and the physical extraterrestrials, as well as the non-physical entities that we and others have talked about encountering or having experiences with, most of them are aware of the greater reality. And so, it's like this technology, it's integrated into their technology. So if that triangle that I saw, if that triangle that you saw, Robert, were from another planet, another physical planet in this galaxy, or in another galaxy that we're able to view from here, they're utilizing the information, then just the same way that we utilize information to do things now. They're doing the same thing with their technology. We don't know that much. And humans have always, you can see this in the recorded history that is accepted, they've always thought that they were the center of the universe. They've always thought that they knew everything. It's always been the minority that says, we don't know anything. I don't know anything. And it's true. Like, really know
I know nothing.
Much of anything. That's right.
I am the dumbest person on this planet.
And well, no, that's not true. That's not true at all.
Because of what we learn, we realize how much we don't understand. And to realize how small we are in an entire universe of knowledge and expansion we don't understand, we should feel like the stupidest beings in the universe. It's humbling. We're not dumb. We're not, but we have so many questions, and we realize our place in the universe. We don't know nothing.
Right. That's right. It's like it's an old Chinese proverb or whatever, if you, I don't know, I'm making it up, but something like something like if a wise man tells you he's wise, he's not wise.
I've always said anyone that claims they know the truth, you run the opposite way. That's what I've always said.
Yeah.
I was actually taught that long time ago. And I stay away. I rather listen to someone that's asking questions versus someone that is proclaiming truth.
Yep.
Done.
Amen. Yep.
Right there. Amen. I'm in.
Yeah.
That was a good one, buddy.
That's right.
Good connection. So incredible experience. Now, you were 15, 16 years old, 1999, in Texas when you had this experience. Did you have any previous experience? Why was your mother so hesitant about chasing this thing down the road? Was she afraid of what the heck is going on with that situation, buddy? And did you have an earlier experience? Have you ever seen anything like this before 15, 16 years old?
Yeah. So one other experience that I can recall around the age of 10, in which my mother had a similar, although quite more dramatic, reaction to. So we were driving back from an area a little farther north in Texas. We were in Livingston, Texas, driving from Livingston to Beaumont, Texas, if the audience wants to look that up on a map. It's not that far of a drive. It's about, I'd say, maybe an hour or so, maybe an hour and a half. But we were coming back really late. At the time, I have two older half brothers, and the eldest had a home there at the time, and we had gone. My mother was a master jeweler, and so is my eldest half brother. He had a centrifuge, so she had to go up to cast a ring. And so we made that drive, and we didn't come back, and we didn't leave there until like midnight. So we're on the road. It's midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, something. Nobody else is on the road. This is a desolate Texas highway. I know how cliche that sounds for a UFO story, but that's it. Pitch black, dead of night, and we're in a Jeep Wrangler with soft top Jeep Wrangler. We have our dog with us. This is Dalmatian. Her name was Dottie. And so she's in the back. I'm in the front passenger seat. My mother's driving. I'm 10 years old. So this is roughly 1992. Is that, it's 10, 83, it was
92, 93.
90, yeah, like 92, something like that. So there's a bright light behind us on the horizon that's blinking like a telecommunications tower. If you've been out at night on the highway, you see these big lights that blink. Initially, it looks like that, right? Its frequency doesn't change. It's the same rate, just like you did, Robert, right? It's the same pulsation. But this is following us, and you can see it behind the Jeep on the horizon, moving from the left side to the right side, and then it comes up, and you can see it. I can see it out my mother's driver's side window back in the forest, and then it's on my side, and then it's behind us. Now, one other thing about this, when it illuminates, when it blinks, it's as bright as daylight all around us, not just behind us, in front of us too. And
like
I remember,
a full moon, but even brighter, like daytime.
like the sun is out. Yeah, like daytime, in front of us, for as far as the eye can see. It's as bright as day when this thing blinks. So that is initially, I think, what probably scared my mom. But my mom, upon seeing this, she's making comments like it's following us. And she's visibly frightened. Now I'm 10, so I'm not the smartest, but anyway, I mean, I'm paying attention to what's going on.
You were along for the ride.
I suggest that we stop. I'm excited by the fact that there might be a UFO that's following us, right? And so I say, why don't we stop? And she goes, oh no, she's hitting the governor in the Jeep. So whatever the governor was at in a Jeep Wrangler in 1992, maybe 95 or 100.
110,
Yeah.
115, 95
Right.
miles per hour.
She's hitting the governor. It's floored.
Wow.
The dog is going crazy.
The dog was responding.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
We've heard
Dogs-
this in previous episodes of guests that had experiences with dogs. They reacted in really strange ways. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. So the dog was responding. I wasn't bothered. Like I said, I wanted her to stop, but she wasn't entertaining that idea at all. So this goes on for not very long, maybe 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and then it just is gone. Now, I don't have any recollection of anything other than what I said to my mother immediately after it goes away. And that was, or what she said rather. She said, I don't think they took us. I think they didn't take us because of the dog. And I remember thinking to myself, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life at being a 10-year-old, because I thought, if those are aliens or whatever they are, like, a dog is not going to stop them from doing anything they want to do. Now, so that may not be the case. But again, I wasn't frightened by this. I thought it was really interesting, and so that was the first experience that I ever had at 10. And the second was the triangle experience at 15, and then things have gotten a little crazier since
Now,
then. But
now this craft, because it was cruising behind you, and your mother was flooring it to the governor full speed. And in Texas, these roads out in the middle of nowhere, they're pretty straight, and you can really get on it. And this thing was dipping left and right, and you would see it coming in and out of the tree lines that were on both sides, and the forest and the plant life. Now, did you ever get to see this? Did it ever get up in front of you? And what was the shape of this craft, or was it
I don't
just
know.
the lights?
Just the light was, and again, this was incredibly bright. So, looking back at the light when I could define it as a little point or the source of all the light, it just looked like a bright light. I couldn't tell you.
A massive spotlight illuminating everything like a football game at nighttime. If you've ever been on a
for as
football
far
field,
as the eye could see. I could not see any darkness when this illuminated. That included in front of the Jeep going 100 miles an hour when this thing appeared to be, I don't know, several hundred yards away, right? Or 1,000 yards away.
Texas is flat.
This was flat. This was relative. There were a couple of little hills, but this is flat.
You could see far away, and it was equivalent to a sun turning on.
Just like it was daytime. Yeah.
And we don't have any lights quite that powerful.
No. No.
Wow.
Not for that distance. No way.
Yeah. Well, geez, Chase, that really explains why your mom was so hesitant with the experience you had when you were 15 and 16 years old, saying, oh no, we've already outran one of these things before, and we were lucky enough. There's no way I'm going after it. Leave it be, boy. Was that like, looking back and knowing that story, is that what you took away from that?
I don't know, and it's a shame that I can't. She passed, like 12 years ago, so I can't ask her. But I do recall having asked her at some point in my teen years if she'd ever had any other experiences with UFOs. And she did tell me about a time when she was living in Austin, Texas, when she was in her early 20s, when she saw a multicolored kind of the classic domed multicolored UFO that you see in, science fiction or illustrated in comics or whatever, and for that matter, I mean, there are some photos that have been agreed upon as being legitimate that resemble that as well. So, but she never mentioned anything else. And as far as I'm aware, I don't know where that fear really came from, because and always have been. I've always been
society, Chase.
It must just be from
the ridicule, the rejection. If you mention it, you're called a whack job. What drugs have you been doing? You're out of your mind. You're a lunatic. There isn't no such thing. We humans are the only thing in the universe. I'm sorry, I can't say it with a straight face. But it's unfortunately that really holds back. And Chase, I'm so sorry to hear about your mother and brother.
Oh, no, I appreciate that.
I really understand. Unfortunately, our mothers did not get to see what we are doing now with disclosure.
Oh,
they passed before. They're watching it from a distance, but
we have the opportunity to see all of that. This is part of the process. We'll be gone too onto another thing, and all is well. I do appreciate the sentiment, though, and the same for your mother as well.
It's tough because my mom always told me that a day would come. I just never thought that she wanted to be a part of it. So now that both you and I are doing all of this for this disclosure community, it stinks sometimes that they're physically not here. And they went through their transformation and they're pulling strings in the background. I think they're playing a catalyst in our lives, whether we realize of it. I don't have as many connections with my mother, but every single intuitive person I talk to, they all hear her. For some reason, I don't, because I think it's just too much to handle, and I'm focused on the mission for now.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
mine. But I agree with the sentiment for sure. Yeah, I think they certainly want what's best, and they see the grander picture for what it is, and it's it's
A mother protecting her son. That's what
yeah,
it is. Let's
yeah.
call it for
Well,
what it is.
I was just going to compare, just the greater reality and the reality of the existence of extraterrestrials and ultra terrestrials and everything. It's like coming from a position earlier in life in which I thought a lot of this was nonsense, into a position where I've had other experiences in which I've been in front of other entities, and communicated with other entities, and had 3-star generals tell me the meaning of lights on craft that I've seen and stuff like that. Like, it's a bit like waking up and
Unreal.
realizing
It's unreal.
Yeah, it really is.
But it's absolutely real. And that's what makes it so confusing to us, because I have very high-ranking friends, ex-Air Force Intelligence Major George A. Filer, good friends of mine, talking about sharing information with me and many others about extraterrestrial that was shot on a military base, 1977, here in New Jersey, and him debriefing other generals and stuff like that. And it's just like, why is no one listening?
That's
it
right.
drives you mad, but patience.
Yeah.
And you're very patient. And that's an incredible story. And the fact you had that experience with your mother and that craft, it must have been a lot, especially not being able to talk about these things, right? Did you receive any backlash, or did you just automatically knew I should keep my mouth shut, or did you try to tell friends, and what were their responses?
Yeah, so I didn't really do much for about 20 years with respect to this. Like, for 20 years, I more or less knew that extraterrestrials were real, just purely based off of mathematics and the Drake equation, and knowing that there are all these stars we look out at the sky, and here we are around a star, and it's a bit absurd to think that we're the only ones. But aside from that, and these other experiences that I had, like, that was really all that I thought about. When it came to religion, I went through a period in life where I called myself an anti-theist. I thought organized religion was a sickness. I thought that I had it all figured out. I thought that it was all based on astrology, and all started with the harvest and yada, yada, yada. And I read the Bible, I read the Torah, I read the Quran, I read all the religious texts, the Egyptian Book of the Dead. I consumed as much as I could, and I put all this together and thought, I've got it all figured out. And then about 7 years ago, a good friend of mine who was working somewhere interfaced with individuals that
are that had
information on the Roswell event, inside information, and part of that information was that it was still classified. And they also had information on the Army's remote viewing program, and part of that information.
Looking Glass?
No, the initial research performed by Stanford Research Institute and carried out at there's an Army base in the Northeast. Forgive me, I'm having a lapse in memory here. But what the bottom line out of that data on the remote viewing program was that it was still a live program, and it had been transferred to the CIA. So that information somehow led me into discussing with my buddy that we needed to we needed to focus on the hard evidence. And the hard evidence to us in that moment in time was rooted in the easiest evidence to get our hands on that wasn't classified, was rooted in animal mutilations, namely, primarily cattle mutilations. There's a lot of really appealing, interesting data that can be had from cattle mutilations, but no one at the time had a really extensive or exhaustive database on all of these
Linda
mutilations.
Morton Howe was covering it.
Yeah,
but one of the few only ones.
She was, and she's got some phenomenal work that she did in the field, but she wasn't willing to share her database with me. I reached out to her, and that's fair because it's something she's put together for decades.
Years.
Why is she just going to hand it over to somebody? So that's fair. But I wanted to put together a comprehensive list. Now, I found, as Linda found, that there are many more animal mutilations aside from just cattle. There are dogs, cats, kangaroos, seals, sheep,
a lot of
humans.
Sheep.
There's a couple of humans that I'm aware of.
In
dolphins.
Russia.
Yep.
In Russia.
Yeah. So there's a lot. So and the MO is the same. And so initially my work 6 or 7 years ago began in that space, quickly moved into the CE5 human initiated contact space, and then shifted because of experiences that I was having into what's now rooted in the nature of consciousness itself, and namely it being non-localized. So, we all conscious agents, literally everything in existence, everything that you can see or experience or feel or touch or think about, is a perceptual dimension. And we connect to this field of consciousness, and that's where these things like telepathy come from. They're rooted in connecting with this field, and there's so much more to talk about. But
all of us. All of us.
Oh yeah. That's where I'm at. Right.
And
so the inside joke with me and my buddies, the inside joke was I told him 6 or 7 years ago as a joke, not to offend any listeners, but I told him as a joke, because remember 6 or 7 years ago, I was really skeptical of most of this. I said, hey man, and in a year, if I'm on a mountain with love beads and meditating all the time, you'll know I lost it. Well, guess what? That's where I'm at now. I'm not wearing my love beads, but that's where I'm at now, and that's all very real.
You've lost it.
Yeah, and I haven't lost it, but to the outside looking in, it appears.
Let's be
that's
real.
Part of the
transition. To everyday normal society that's unaware of this phenomena and goes out of their way to ignore it. Yeah, you and I, we've completely lost it. To anyone that's ever had an experience, we are completely on it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Big difference there. But, dude, I relate now. Your buddy, your friend you're talking about, yes and no or question.
Yeah.
And is this individual in the military? Yes and no.
They were. Okay. They were career. They retired.
Everyone that's watching this, I want you all to know. Recently, Chase, through a process, released some very classified documents known as the Wilson Memo leaks. All right, private conversations talking about alien bodies and cover-ups and etc. And it's being passed around a lot in the disclosure community. And although we're not name dropping here, Chase is good friends and knows a lot of individuals that most of you see on TV. And we're not going to say those names, but he has some very valuable insight into this phenomena and the vehicle that he has been working on. So if you could briefly, really quick, just talk about this vehicle you put together, and then make a brief statement about the Wilson memos and the highlights, just to sum it up for time's sake. the highlights of what these memos are, and the biggest, say, the 5 takeaways from these classified, blacked out documents, and your vehicle that you've designed that is set up for capturing UFOs and all that. If you just want to touch on
the Wilson documents and the alien autopsy documents, I did leak those, and I'm not name dropping here, but just this has already been out, and Grant doesn't care. So Grant Cameron and I are good friends too. The reason I know Grant, just like the reason I know you, is because I have been involved in reaching out to individuals in our community that have had similar experiences. I reached out to Grant Cameron after one of the most profound experiences I've ever had, which I can get into the next time you have me on the show, but it has to do with lights appearing in the sky when I asked them to answer a question I had in my head, which makes me sound really crazy, but I promise you I'm not.
No, we all do it.
Okay.
Everyone watching this has done the same thing.
Okay.
We're aware of it.
For those that watch this that are on board with that, then we're on the same page. For those that think it sounds crazy, I'll just say you need to have an open mind, because this stuff, while it sounds crazy, it's meant to sound crazy. And when you open your mind to this stuff, really strange things begin to happen, and it all has to do with the nature of reality. And that's part of the reason why you are here, is to work out why you're having this experience. So
I tell people all the time, look up 10 minutes a night, and then you won't think we're crazy. Yeah. No, within a month, you're bound to see something. 10 minutes a night. If you spend more time than that, you'll see even more. All of my UFO experiences, my one video where it's like 21 different UFOs, most of them were me just taking my dog out to pee and poop. And that's when I have my experiences. Just look up. Get off your cell phones and look up. Don't call us.
Oh, we see, we go out almost every night, and we call them travelers, and we'll see anywhere from 2, some nights it's more than 10. In the span of 10 minutes, guys.
You see your satellites, but you see a lot of things doing things that satellites don't do. And the power-ups, you've seen the power-ups.
Yeah, they power up.
You know what I mean. Satellites don't power up like that. And then you ask for them to power up, and then you just start getting flashes. I have this recorded on film, 4K, 60 frames per second. It's real.
Yeah, it's very real.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, so the Wilson docs and the alien autopsy, Grant mentioned those on a call that he and I had, and he said he didn't want to leak those at the time because he didn't want to ruin relationships. He since told me, in fact, just a couple of weeks ago, he said, I don't care if people know. So so you're not the first to ask about this, but I leaked those documents for Grant. I'm convinced that they're both absolutely legitimate. They're not fiction. They're not fictionalized. There's no embellishment, as far as I can tell. The Wilson
not at all.
Talk about, for those that are interested, they talk about how a government contractor, it's either Raytheon or Lockheed Martin or one of the big contractors.
McDonnell Douglas.
Right. that likely had some of this recovered technology and has been trying to reverse engineer it, and haven't made a lot of progress in the past 30 or so years because it's incredibly advanced. So try to imagine, a caveman picking up a cell phone. Even if you were smart enough as a caveman to take this apart and to look at all the components and to figure out what the different components were used for. Here's a screen. This is probably a camera. This is a case to protect it from drops. You still wouldn't be able to manufacture the integrated circuits. You wouldn't be able to manufacture the rubber. You wouldn't be able to do any of that because you wouldn't have
Lazar
the
said the same thing.
Right. So
Bob Lazar said the same thing.
So that's part of the problem. So anyway, so yes, I did leak those. I leaked those on an app, on a website called Imager, IMGUR. I did it under an anonymous, a random username that I created. Never used the account again, and that's where everybody got those documents initially from.
We are the disclosure, buddy.
That's right. Yeah.
We don't need the government. We're out here leaking stuff left and right. That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
So, and big shout out to Grant
Cameron.
I'm not.
Hey,
Grant, if you're watching this, bub, would love to have you on the show. Big shout out for the sacrifices you've made for this community and the bravery you have to present this stuff. And thank you for making Chase a part of that. It means a lot to me. I'm sure it means a lot to Chase. And really appreciate your work in the disclosure community, just in case you're watching, buddy. That's it. I just want to give him a little shout out because
Grant consumes so much. I would be surprised if he doesn't see the show. But he, and I'll ask him if he wants to come on. I'll mention your name to him the next time we talk. He's a great guy. He's a great guy. Just be prepared for like a 3 or 4 hour call because he could talk, and I mean that in the most loving way possible.
If I could have you that long, you know I would, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
But you got to cook that dinner, bro.
Yeah. So the
disclosure and dinner, the 2 Ds.
That's right. So and then the vehicle. So about
the whole reason we connected.
about 2 years ago. I started building a long-range expeditionary vehicle. The platform was for those people familiar, as it was considered a 100 series Land Cruiser. It's a 1999, and the reason I picked that vehicle is because the engine in it is considered by many, arguably, to be one of the most reliable engines ever manufactured, ever. And it's also one of the most capable off-road vehicles ever made. And that's true for almost every Land Cruiser there is. And that's why you see a lot of Land Cruisers in the Middle East. You see a lot in Asia. You see a lot in Russia. Oddly enough,
400,000 miles on them still rocking.
Oh, yeah, right. So they're very, very reliable, very, very capable. So that was the base vehicle. Now, I've since shifted my focus to either a 200 or 300 series that I'm going to buy at some point here in the near future and retrofit, and that'll be the next expeditionary vehicle. But to speak to some of the features that you've mentioned, Robert, so I put a bunch of money into this 100 series, and I interfaced with DoD on this, on the capabilities, and trying to understand what they had. Specifically for UAP, and I was going to do it better because, like I said, my background is in instrumentation controls and vehicular systems. So I'm an instrumentation expert in some regards, and so you are. Let me make that clear, everyone. He's humble. He's a humble guy. He's absolutely a pioneering genius when it comes to automotive AI technologies. Trust me, I'll speak for you. I'll take it. I'll take it. But I'll take it. But okay. So here are the capabilities. So the intention with the system is to take it out into really remote areas. Also have all of the MUFON data, all of the missing 411 data, all of the cryptozoological data, all of the data for everything embedded into the integrated system inside, so that the users inside, the occupants, the driver, and the passenger, who's referred to as the co-pilot, they can pull up all this information. So if we're on the road and we're headed to Utah, and I want the system to tell me there have been 18 sightings in the local vicinity, in the 30-mile radius. There's ghost sightings here. These people had near-death experiences. I would like to see that. So that's part of the system design. The other part is observation and sensing technology. So in addition to all the normal things that you would look at, be it atmospherics. We're looking at obviously temperature. We're looking at precipitation. We're looking at air ionization. We're looking at all kinds of atmospherics data. We also have a perception system, long range hyperspectral imaging. That's ultraviolet, infrared, and visible spectrum.
Multiple spectrums, multiple light spectrums.
Multiple spectrums, 15-mile range. At 15 miles, 8 pixels across the target. So to put that into perspective, a plane passing overhead at 30,000 feet with its passenger windows open, this system
crystal clear.
It can look in through the windows at the people in the passenger seats and see what they're reading in the newspaper, okay, in color. So
that's a lot of money. That's
yeah.
How much does a camera like that cost, Chase?
If you buy it from a DoD Tier 1 supplier, probably about $250,000.
All right.
So if you build it yourself, you can do it for a lot cheaper than $250,000. But if you buy it from somebody that's selling it to the military, $250,000. And believe you me, they have cameras like that already. Now, the one thing that differentiates my system from the ones that are available off the shelf is that it includes ultraviolet in its spectrum allocation.
So important. Right. And so why is that important?
That's important because if you read the books that guys like you and me read and researching stuff in the phenomenon, what you'll find is that people see lots of stuff in the infrared that they don't see in the visible spectrum. They see lots of stuff in the visible spectrum that they don't see in the infrared. And there's a small amount of data of people that see things in the ultraviolet or have and recorded it. And there are about 4 books in existence that I'm familiar with, 2 authors that have talked about the ultraviolet spectrum, but you don't hear much from these people. I suspect both of them are deceased now just due to natural causes. But that's really curious. Now, there's information of historical information out of DoD of headsets that utilized ultraviolet and infrared that were deployed to soldiers in the battlefield in the 50s and the 60s. And they reported quite frequently to their leadership, to their commanding officers, that they were seeing demons, dragons, ghosts, aliens, all kinds of stuff. They were just written off as being exhausted, tired. You need to go to sleep. You're hallucinating. We know that's not the case. So there's a lot that can be seen in the ultraviolet, the same as can be said for infrared, as can be said for visible, as can be said for other areas of the spectrum.
The energy spectrum. The ultraviolet is the energy spectrum. So you're able to see energy take certain outlines and forms. So
in some cases,
dimensional beings.
Yes. Yeah, right. They're there. They just, and the same thing is true for what we refer to as craft, right? Mm-hmm. So the intent behind the ultraviolet part of the hyperspectral system, and the same is true for the infrared part, is to be able to capture these things that are there that we can't see with the naked eye, or the visible spectrum, right? And you can see this on YouTube. You go and type in UFO on night vision in YouTube, and you'll see it. Now that's infrared.
Infrared,
right?
Yep.
If you want to see an example of ultraviolet,
you're not going to find game.
It's a whole other ball game. You're not going to find a lot. You can Google ultraviolet photography and see.
You'll see a lot of ghosts. A lot of ghost hunters use it, but not the UFO community. They should be.
It's not very common. Now, I think that's. I don't know if that's true for defense. They might use it for this purpose. I'm not sure.
They're not telling us though.
They're not.
We don't know
they're
about
not saying.
it.
Yeah. Right. But
I am using light spectrums to contact these crafts.
Now,
I know that for sure.
I want to be clear too. You mentioned before. I'm not having this conversation so that people will find me on YouTube. I don't care about credit. I was never my intention to even use that vehicle to record anything for anybody else other than myself, because I wanted my own answers. Because when I tell somebody on the street or online or wherever, unless it's a really good friend or a family member, and even then it's iffy. Usually people go, well, maybe it was a bird that you saw, and I go, how are you going to convince somebody of something that you experience? If you wake up in the middle of the night and you see your deceased grandmother at the end of your bed, nobody else is going to believe that you had that experience, or they're going to tell you were dreaming or whatever, right?
Unless they had that experience,
right?
Unless they've seen it for themselves.
So this has never been about convincing anybody else, or getting
us
kind of credit. But there have been people that have asked for me to record these, so I will provide that stuff to people, or put it somewhere where they can find it if I have something that's really compelling that I think is worth sharing. And of course, the DoD individuals that I've interfaced with, they've been interested in this concept. I was approached at one point to get involved with a relatively new task force that a lot of you are probably familiar with. I turned that down because
smart. We talked about this.
Yeah,
we talked about privately. Good decision, bub.
And I was also, there were some interesting requests there, but yeah. So that's the project. There are also other systems on board. There are systems that detect movement around the vehicle. There are systems that monitor biometric right. That's right. The
weather conditions.
That's right. Yeah. Right. So we're monitoring. It's a portable system. One of the most
solar
advanced
flares.
Yeah.
Etc. Yeah. Electromagnetic activity phenomena.
Yeah. Even air sampling, all kinds of stuff. So all of that's integrated into the design. Not all of that has been done yet, but a lot of it has been done. And I can share some slides with you. I think you've seen a few. I can share some pictures. And
I have them. I'll put them up right now. Everyone will be seeing it. And I remember when we first talked about this, and like Chase, I told him, I'm like, hey man, if you want to take this vehicle around, I'll do all the recording. We'll put together a show.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to come get you, Robert. I'll be up there for sure. Yeah.
I was trying to talk him into it. I'm like, no. Don't work for the DoD. Let's just you and I go out and have personal experiences and call these things down and make personal contact. And then we'll just distribute it.
Oh, let me tell you.
You've had TV offers. Yeah. We won't say who or what, but you've had it, Yeah. They
wanted me to go on tour. They wanted a TV show, HBO special. They wanted all kinds of stuff. One of the first things they suggested prior to the TV stuff was that I tested against Predator and Reaper drones. And I said, well, what happens when my system's able to look at a Predator and Reaper drone and see all the little components up close and personal? I'm pretty sure that's classified.
National security.
Yeah, right. So my question to that person particularly was, I'm pretty sure that this could potentially mean them taking my vehicle away if I demonstrate those capabilities. And he said that's a possibility. And so I more or less stopped. He's a good guy, so if he ever sees this, but
much love to you.
I kind of lost interest.
We understand,
and I have no interest.
We understand
in going on tour and doing a reality show. There are other individuals. Another person that I know very well that was on a show that you mentioned before on a call we had prior to this recording. He's a good guy. He has a vehicle that he's outfitted with some
Osiris vehicle. The Osiris vehicle on Skinwalker
Ranch,
and
it's great.
It's 3.
A lot of fun. I like Jeremy a lot. He's a good guy. He really is. No disrespect if you see this, Jeremy, but listen, I work with instrumentation. It's what I do. I told the NSA on a call that their sensor stack was a piece of garbage. Yours is, it's about the same. And that's just in relation to what I would consider a really good instrument, So it's like, I've got a webcam there, I got a webcam here, and then I've got a $250,000 camera over there. The $250,000 camera is going to be able to see with a lot higher resolution, right? You got satellites that orbit the Earth that can zoom down on a person's head and count how many hairs they have in their head almost. But a webcam can't do that. So it all comes down to money and resources. And unfortunately, that's a part of this world. And,
we all struggle. We all struggle with the money and resources.
Right. Yeah, it's a great guy. But the other part of this too is it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter how good the instrumentation is either, because this stuff changes based on your thoughts. So yeah. So there's
it don't matter. $1 million camera will shut down. And to your friend on Skinwalker Ranch, when they were doing the experiment, his vehicle shut down twice. Yeah. It's thought and intent. These crafts operate off of thoughts. You and I were talking about this.
Yeah.
So they know exactly what you're thinking, what is your purpose of doing it, and what do you want to accomplish. And not because of what we're saying, but whatever the individual being thinks or picks up, if they don't feel comfortable with it, they're going to shut your craft down, your instruments down.
Yeah,
regardless.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I've got to run on being flagged, but I want to come back and talk more about this stuff if you'll have me.
And hey, real quick, for everyone that's watching this, what's the best way to reach you? How could people reach out to you?
Yeah, so I'm going to give you guys a rather obscure email address, if that's okay.
That's fine. I'll put it in the description.
Okay, it's eq1725@gmail.com.
Perfect. So anyone that's watching, if you had experience in Texas around these same times, if you have additional information or you want to reach out to him and ask him some questions, etc., please email him. That will be in the description. And yes, Chase Williams, there will definitely be a part 2 of this episode. Sweet. Without a doubt in my mind. I appreciate you coming on so much, and thank you for being one of those figures of disclosure that's playing the background, wanting no recognition, wanting no titles. But brother, when you speak, I listen, and I'm so happy to have your friendship. And I know in the future, you and I, eventually someday, we're going to deliver the big questions everyone has with irrefutable evidence, because that's what we're doing. Everyone can talk their game and say what they want. Extraterrestrials came to me last night. Oh, wow, that's fun. What evidence do you have? We're past that. Chase and I, we want to prove to the world that these things exist, and we are putting a lot of our time and money into these projects. He's put way more than even myself, and that's what it's about. It's not about getting clout or fame. It's because we want these answers for ourselves. We had these incredible experiences, and we got to know what it is. So everyone out there, please hit that like button. Please subscribe. And I hope to see you next time. Check out all the links in the description, the merchandise, additional information. If you have any additional information, please reach out to me in email. You will see my contact down there, and Chase's as well. So thank you so much, brother. I will see you next time. Thank you so much. We are the Disclosure. Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks for having me, Robert. We'll see you soon.
Please join the YouTube membership for my channel. You will get exclusive badges, really awesome emojis, member-only live streams, posts, and chats and connections with me for only $5.99 a month. See you there. Hey everyone, check out the Order of Light merchandise store. We got a lot of different t-shirts there. The Humans Aren't Real, Lower Always Creek Incident. We got tank tops and Merkaba. We got stickers, glasses, a lot of different glasses, so get thirsty. We got bags. I live in New Jersey. We don't have bags anymore, so it's really nice. We got flip-flops, hoodies, and all the ladies out there, we got a bunch of awesome merchandise for you.